Taking notes in a college class can be a real challenge. What's the best approach to note-taking when there's so much information coming at you? In this brief video, two University of Wisconsin Marinette professors, Dr. Dan Kullgren and Dr. Mark Klemp, share some practical tips to help you take notes more effectively. Follow these suggestions, and you'll get more out of your classes and earn higher grades.
You really need to pay attention to note-taking. Note-taking skills can be really tricky. The pace picks up. It's tough. The information comes at you fast. And we're so tuned to want to get every piece of information, like a tape recording, have it verbatim, and that's just not practical. You can use tape recordings and things like that to help out. But your note-taking skills are really something that needs to be honed and worked on.
Every single time you go to class, you bring something to write with, and you bring something to write on. You always assume that the professor is going to have something important for you to take note of.
Well, I'll give an example of how I was taking notes in a chemistry class. It doesn't have to be chemistry, of course, but what I typically would do is walk in with a sheet of paper. And so here's the regular, 3-hole punch paper, and you have the little blue line there, but I would divide it into 1/3 and 2/3. So I would draw a line like that, and I would reserve this page for kind of notes to myself, but this is the actual notes I would be taking during class. And if a professor like me that's rambling on, all right, there's 3 parts to an atom, and I'm going to say the proton, neutron, and electron, and I'm going to say this stuff rather quickly. And so I'm feverishly writing, okay, 3 parts to atom, and I'm going to say 1, the proton, 2, the neutron. And I never got to 3 because by the time I'm trying to listen, I didn't really get 3 written down. I knew it was electron, but I forgot. And I maybe put some more information that I said what the mass was. And I put a 1 down for the proton, 1, and that one was 0, but I forgot what it was called, so I know I was missing a name here. And then by this time, I'm on to a new subject, perhaps. All right, what I would do then, for the way I would take my notes when I was a student, is I would reserve this section. I would make a note to myself, say, missed this, and put a little arrow there. So it's a note to me that, hey, I have to look this up in the book or talk to the professor. Maybe the professor would say something like, oh, that's an important point. You might see this in the exam, and I might write a little test and put a little asterisk here. Just remember, again, a note to myself saying, hey, pay attention to this particular point. That's an important one. And if you add those up,
it's important for students to realize that if you're taking notes in a lecture class, when the professor is offering sort of a lecture outline like that, you want to take both the heading down, the main idea, the main issue that the professor is trying to get across, and then leave space underneath to put in the details. And those are where the details are going to come. The professor is going to talk about, the 4 things to keep in mind about presidential reconstruction or something like that. So you want to be, listening for those details to kind of fill in under the outline.
It is not realistic to expect that you will write everything down you would like to. The material just comes at you too fast. And so that's one aspect of embracing the idea that, hey, I'm not going to be able to record everything, but at least I want to get information down so I can fill in the missing gaps in my notes from the textbook or from the professor after the fact.
In classes of mine, I'm always happy to see students raise their hands, ask for a clarifying statement, or ask me to sort of, clear up something that they didn't quite understand or go over something again. And taking notes is a really great way to keep you involved in what a faculty member is saying. If you don't have anything in front of you, if you don't have anything to write with, you're much more inclined to just kind of zone out and let the faculty member go on. But if you've got something to write with and something to write on, and you're carefully sort of noting down the important bits of information or information that the faculty member's presenting, you're much less likely to sort of lose their train of thought, and you're a lot more likely to kind of stay plugged in with what they're trying to get across to you. I think also sometimes students think that if there's something going on in the classroom other than a lecture, that then it's time to sort of, put the pen down, cross your arms, and sort of sit back and be entertained. Oftentimes, the music that you're hearing, the video clip that you're watching, the discussion that you're engaging in, that's when some of the most creative and important information is being presented in a class.
What I would do is, after I took my notes and I could fill in my holes where I was missing information, I would, as quickly as I could, try to rewrite my notes, ideally the same day. I'd take a new sheet of paper here, and I would use a ruler, making this much higher quality, but I would write a much straighter line, 1/3 and 2/3. And I might even do this multicolor. I might start out saying 3 parts of an atom. And of course, I'm writing fast now, but I would have this much more legible, and then I would write down the 3 parts of the atom with all the information, including the missing stuff that I didn't get on my first page of notes. And again, I might make a note here, this is maybe going to be an exam, and other information as well. But what the real benefit is, when you have this multicolored, really nice set of notes, it's not this set that the notes are more legible, it's really that you've gone through all this information when you sat in that class and you're feverishly taking your notes and trying to keep up and not lose information. When you replay that stuff by writing these notes over again, it's really an earnest, in-depth, engaged way to go through that lecture again, that full lecture, and it really strongly reinforces those ideas. And so by the time I would get down to studying for exam, looking at these pages, I've already done this twice, engaged really in detail in my head. It was really a simple matter of just reminding myself, oh yes, those were the 3 parts, and that was the mass of the atom, and etc.
Before the next class period, you'll review the notes from the previous class and from the reading you've done for that class. Taking notes in a notebook while you're reading is one of the absolute best ways that you can ensure that you're getting the information that you need from that text. The added benefit is then when you go and study for exams or when you're writing a paper, you've got sort of your own kind of personal index in your notebook of what the key issues are, what the key themes are. And I often tell my students that if you just go kind of paragraph by paragraph, what's the key issue, what's the key term, the key idea that the author is writing about in that paragraph, put a couple of notes underneath it, and then move on to the next paragraph. If you do that, by the end of the assignment, you'll have a nice kind of paraphrased version in your notes of what you've read, and when it comes time again to study or to write a paper, you'll have a much better chance of incorporating some of that important information in what it is that you're producing for the faculty member.